I should have rolled out the black tie, knowing that we were going to have this very special guest in studio this afternoon. He's been a batting all-rounder for Australia. I have to be honest, growing up in Australia, Neil, he had one of the most mimicked bowling actions.
Oh, is it?
The way the right arm used to sort of come in, the left arm used to come in over the top. So everyone in the backyard always used to like him. 2 World Cups for Australia, 87 and 99, where rumour has it he was Steve's right-hand man for that 99 World Cup with Steve Waugh. He coached Sri Lanka to 2 World Cup finals. He's worked with the IPL with the Sun Risers Hyderbad, and he's also here to help promote the UAE International T20 League. Tom Moody, welcome to TSB. Great to have you here.
It's great to be here too. Thank you for the very generous welcome. It's always nice to be around cricketing people.
Yeah, well, Neil here has actually been a commentator and the batting coach for the UAE men's side for many a year, so I'm sure maybe you could learn something off him.
You never know. You always have to have an open mind. Everyone's got a way.
Definitely.
No, obviously, yes. But Tom, it's a fantastic time to be around here in the UAE. So much cricket, so much quality cricket, let me put it that way. We've seen some leagues go through IPL, then the World Cup, Asia Cup now. It's just amazing to see so many things happening. And now we are on the verge of the ILT20 Desert Vipers and Tom Moody joining hands together. Tell me, how did it all happen when you were told that, listen, let's join hands for the ILT20?
Yeah, look, it's very exciting, as you say, to have a franchise tournament here in the UAE that embraces the cricket community here is really important. We've seen how important that is, how that's unfolded throughout the cricketing world with the IPL, with the Caribbean League, the Big Bash in Australia, and so on and so forth. To have their standalone tournament here is really important, and for me to be involved with the Desert Vipers is a great thrill. It's obviously a new venture for the owners. It's a new venture for us all in a new territory. Certainly cricket here in the UAE is big. Right. We know that. It's got a very strong following. We've certainly got great facilities here. And, we really do hope that this tournament does take off, which I'm sure it will because of the quality of cricketers that have been attracted to this tournament, and is something that's the beginning of something big.
You're working as the director of cricket. When it comes to coaching a T20 side, generally the bulk of the players are from that country, and then you get a couple of internationals thrown into the mix. Here it's flipped around the other way, and the bulk are going to be internationals. How does that work as a coach when you need to bring together so many different people of cultures and nationalities? I
think that's the really exciting part of being involved in franchise cricket, is working with a variety of different cultures. Not only from a point of view of learning, what people's backgrounds are and what their traditions are, and respecting those and understanding those, but from a cricketing perspective, it's such a positive way to grow and understand every element of the game. You may have a certain way of doing things in Australia or England or wherever it may be, but across the world everyone's got their own ideas and everyone's got their own ways of doing things. And I think going into these types of tournaments you need to go in with a very open mind, and an open mind to looking to learn and grow yourself.
I mean, you mentioned about, people coming in from different walks of life, literally. That's how even the coaching staff looks like. We've got James Foster, we've got, Azhar Mahmood coming in as the bowling coach. What can be expected from a set of coaches who come from different backgrounds, different countries, different set of experiences, coaching again a different set of people altogether? Yeah.
Look, we made a conscious effort of trying to get a real broad spectrum of coaches that have got a great deal of experience. You got Neil McKenzie from South Africa as well as batting coach. You've got Simon Helmut from Australia, who's had success around the franchise global world. And the list goes on. And I think it's an opportunity for those coaches to learn off each other, but more importantly, it's an opportunity for not only the internationals, but the local talent to learn from those coaches. True. We're fortunate enough to have 4 UAE players that will be selecting in a draft process in November. And 2 of those will be playing in the playing 11. So what a great opportunity for those players to be playing alongside a lot of experienced international franchise players and World Cup winners in some cases, and to grow their expertise, but then pass that down the chain in the community here in the UAE.
You've got the role as the director of cricket. How does that differ from being a coach? I mean, is it where you don't have to do the press conferences after the game when you might want to say things you can't?
Probably when you lose. Yeah. Go in there, boss. Go and sort it out with you. No, look, it's an interesting one because I sort of look at it in the way that you're nearly sitting in a helicopter now in the role as Director of Cricket. You put in place key personnel. We talked about support staff, various disciplines with that support staff. So you're responsible for that. You're responsible for their day-to-day operation and accountability in that role. But at the end of the day, you're nearly viewing it like you're sitting in a helicopter over the top of that and passing on your expertise and advice. And if there's anything that you feel that could be looked at slightly differently, you have your input. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important that everyone takes responsibility of their role and you give them the freedom to express themselves in that role.
So in the ILT20, which we know is coming here to Dubai next year, it's also the first investment for the Glazers family in cricket and also for you as the Director of Cricket. How do you think it works differently when you've got American administrators to try and understand how cricket works in a Middle East market? Is there a level of education that needs to work there?
Yes, there is, but there isn't any franchise situation that I've been involved with, certainly over the years. The owners are not always first-hand experts at the sport that you're involved in. The fortunate thing with the Glazer family is that they come from a sporting background. They've been involved in sport for many, many years. And not in any sort of small manner either. It's a quite significant involvement in sport. So they understand obviously how it all works from a professional point of view and how sport does work. And you have wins and you have losses, and you've got to wear them on the chin, but stay true to the course of your mission. So, to me, it's exciting to be involved with with an owner of that stature, and I'm sure that we'll learn a hell of a lot in that process.
I mean, Desert Vipers, coming along from the time when the ILT20 was announced, a bunch of names that we've seen doing extremely well internationally and domestically also haven't picked up. Any specific reason why a certain player called Vanindu Hasaranga was probably one of the top names in the list?
Yeah, look, you only have to look at his record in T20 cricket, both in franchise cricket and for Sri Lanka over recent times. He's a phenomenal bowler, incredible talent. And, to have someone like him on your list, everyone hopes to have players of that calibre. They're genuine impact players. And in T20 cricket, with bat and ball, it really is important you do have those impact players that can shift the game. The game can be drifting, away from you, and a player of that calibre can turn it very quickly with just one over by picking up a wicket or two. And similarly, you've got players like Alex Hales, for instance. We saw yesterday what he did for England, scoring 80-odd, man of the match against Australia in Perth just recently. Players that have the ability to have that impact and change the course of a game are just critical.
You mentioned what's happened there with the match between England and Australia. As an Aussie, I want to ask you, we're the reigning champions. We watched all the games out here in Dubai last year. Now we're playing on Australian pitches. What would you do with the Australian side? Would you have Finch at 4? Would you play Steve Smith? What would you do if you were coach?
It's a bit of a headache, isn't it? And Cameron Green sort of created that headache. But I think at the end of the day, I think Finch you'll probably find back at the top of the order. That's to me where he belongs, and that's where he's at his very best. Look, he's had a tough period of time in the international game over recent months. But I'd back him, particularly at home in a World Cup, for him to step up. And again, we talked about impact players. Finch has been that type of player for many, many years for Australia. So I think you'll find him back at the top of the order. Someone like Steve Smith, though, it's going to be hard to find a spot for him, to be honest with you. If they do play Smith, he'll probably play a similar role to how he played here in the UAE when Australia were successful, and that is that batsman that's the stabiliser. You can't just keep rolling out the likes of Mitch Marsh, Maxwell, Stoinis, and those type of power players. You need someone that can steady the ship if
Australia's 2 for 10. You want Steve Smith coming.
Yeah, it's not a bad option.
But then when you look at the sides, Ashton Agar's got a bit of a side strain, which every athlete knows can be a real bugger of an injury. Do you
You're
think
speaking from experience?
Well, I wish I could speak from experience. However, could you see that it wouldn't be a like-for-like replacement? Could you see if he's not fit, Cam Green coming in?
I think unlikely. I think there's obviously a lot of noise around Cam Green, and so there should be. He's probably one of the most exciting all-rounders in world cricket at the moment in all formats of the game. And we're just starting to learn that he can be quite destructive in T20 cricket. We've seen obviously his early year or months in Test cricket and ODI cricket, but there's plenty of time for Cam Green. He's still very young, and Australia have got that type of cricketer in their balance. They've got Mitch Marsh, that's a batting all-rounder. They've got Stoinis, another batting all-rounder. So to stack it with another batting all-rounder is probably not the best option, particularly if you do have an injury with Zampa, for instance, and then you're suddenly stuck with the balance of your side. Your specialist spinner then becomes Maxwell. So I think the smart play would be just do like for like, making sure that you do replace Agar with a spinner if he doesn't come up.
Yeah, he's come through the ranks as a batting all-rounder, much like you are to WA. Did you ever say you need to bat in the floppy hat again? You need to play Test cricket in the floppy hat like Tom Moody.
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, but these days you've got to be careful. There's so much protocol around, concussion rules. The last thing you want to do is find yourself concussed and then out of the game for a couple of weeks.
And then Labuschagne's in the side.
And then Labuschagne comes into the side and you never get your spot again. You're gone.
No, that's true. But then, players like these, like you mentioned, Cam Green has a lot of time on his hand. But then there's another guy who actually rose out of franchise league cricket, Tim David, and got a call for Australia. What are your thoughts on players like these who play for franchise leagues around the world, live out of a suitcase, and then maybe get a call up for the nation?
Oh, I think his selection was a no-brainer, personally. I think he's a really exciting young player. He reminds me a lot of a young Pollard from the West Indies. Similar power, similar impact down the order. It is the hardest place to bat, is down at sort of 5, 6, 7 in T20 cricket. The easiest place to bat is at the top of the order, and that's not saying that those that are doing it well at the top of the order have got an easy gig, but it is hard yards batting down the order when you've suddenly got 12 balls, 20 runs to win, that type of stuff, and you're expected to hit the first or second ball out of the ground. Tim David can do that. So to answer your question around him being selected out of leagues, I think that's just the nature of the beast we have at the moment. He doesn't play red ball cricket. He hasn't been selected to play Sheffield Shield cricket in Australia. So his avenue of playing cricket in Australia is through 50-over cricket and Big Bash cricket. He then got a reputation to, in that format of the game and got picked up by various leagues, and his reputation globally on that T20 platform has grown because of it, and Australia could not ignore what he's been doing.
True.
Players that can do what he can do, and Pollard and players like that, they're rare. They're very rare. They're very hard to walk in and hit the first or second ball out of the ground.
No, you're right.
When you look at some of those extraordinary players with T20 cricket and the power that they've got, where do you see the role, and the scheduling is so hard at cricket, where do you see the role of 50-over one-day international cricket over the next 5-10 years?
Good question. It's a question you probably need to ask the ICC. I still think there's a place for 50-over cricket. I have it's definitely a soft spot in my heart with 50-over cricket, purely because I think there's a real art to that game. I know that this day and age people want things here and now and want instant results, but I think people that appreciate the game can see, the players, whether it be batsmen or bowlers, that perfect the 50-over game. You admire what they do, and I still think it's a good television product.
There's more ads for broadcasters.
There you go. There's more ads, but I think it's still a good product to watch. Yeah, there's nearly like an avalanche of T20 cricket, which I think is good, and it's good for the game because it's engaging all different groups of people to attract to our game. At the end of the day, the more people, the more eyeballs we get on cricket, the better, and the more eyeballs we get supporting the Desert Vipers here in the UAE, the better.
No, it's about this.
That's your number one team.
Right. I mean, Desert Vipers, you said more eyeballs to Desert Vipers. More eyeballs, come through when you catch them young. And that's a plan for Desert Vipers too. Working and unearthing some players at the grassroots level here in the UAE, is it?
Absolutely. Nothing gives you more pleasure from a coaching perspective is help discovering talent. Whether that talent is young or whether that talent has been around for a while but hasn't had the opportunity.
Right.
And that can be circumstances, that can be political circumstances, that can be just luck. The sport, there's a lot of luck attached to sport. And suddenly with a new set of eyes looking at a player and the opportunity, suddenly you find that you do unearth someone that might be in their 20s that's playing pretty good cricket in club cricket around the community here, but just for whatever reasons the stars haven't aligned and they haven't had their chance, and suddenly they go out there, play a game for, let's say, Desert Vipers and perform with bat or ball, and suddenly, where's this kid been? Well, he's been here all the time. It's just that he hasn't really had those opportunities. So hopefully we can find those players that are those cricketers that have been part of the system for a while, but also those younger players coming through the system and accelerating their progress.
No, this is a fantastic thing. I mean, I've been associated with the game here for quite some time now. There is a young kid who played fantastic in the Under-19 World Cup, all of 16 years old, scored a good 80-odd against West Indies in the plate final of the Under-19 World Cup, gets picked for the World Cup squad of UAE. He's now rubbing shoulders with the who's who, literally, of world cricket sitting in Australia right now. So such opportunities are rare. Not everyone gets it. But then, with this structure that you've put in, I think it's just going to be amazing for more such young kids to showcase their talent.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And we've actually got, while we're in town, we've got a trial happening here in Dubai where we're having a look at a lot of emerging players that are just outside of that World Cup squad that are in Australia, and also some young talented under-19 cricketers. So it's important for us that we cast our eyes over everything that's out there.
Makes sense.
Because we've got some tough decisions to make. We want to recruit 4 players that fit the balance of our side, but also fit the long-term vision of the side.
And how hard is it to do that recruitment when you still haven't focused on the internationals, and then you're still trying to find people to fit in certain pieces, but you haven't worked out which pieces need fitting yet?
Yeah, look, we've got an idea of a couple of pieces, and I'm not going to tell you which pieces they are. But we've got an idea of a couple of the pieces that we need to match to complete the balance of our side. Because as I said earlier, we need to play 2 players in the playing 11. So those 2 players are going to be critical to the balance of the side, and they're going to play important roles. And then you also need to have half an eye on the future, because it'd be nice to be able to pick a young player that you think, if we invest time in this kid, he may well be the next superstar of the UAE or the Desert Vipers.
Now, when it comes down to playing cricket in Dubai, it's obviously an attractive place to play. You only have to follow Chris Gale's Instagram account to realise how good Dubai has been off the field. Is that a concern for you? Any of the internationals might want to come here and enjoy some of the fruits of Dubai rather than the game?
Yeah, no one can keep pace with Chris Gale. That's impossible. He's in a league of his own. Look, to be honest with you, that is not an issue at all. This day and age, at the end of the day, players' performances in tournaments like this and other tournaments around the world, that's their currency.
Yeah.
And if they're performing here, their currency is strong, so their opportunity elsewhere grows in other franchises. So they're not sort of coming here and thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be a great month. I'm going to play a few rounds of golf, a couple of games of cricket, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, hit the night
boat
live
parties and
jump on a few boats here and there, and do what you do. But there may be an element of a couple of rounds of golf here and there. There might be also some downtime, but when it comes to the cricket and the preparation for that, it's very professional.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to seeing the Desert Vipers. It's going to be fantastic for the International League T20. But I've always wanted to ask, is it true that during that 99 World Cup for Australia, sorry, I'm being Aussie here for a second.
Please go ahead.
During that 99 World Cup, was it you and Steve Waugh that put the numbers on the players' caps? Is that true that you were the one that said that Steve said go out there and put the numbers on the caps to fire up the boys?
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, we came up with the idea.
Yeah,
because we just felt at that time the 50-over game. Well, put it this way: Test cricket had the significance of the baggy green.
Right.
where 50 over cricket at the time had no real edge to it. Yeah, well done, you're playing your first game for Australia, there's your cap, and that was it.
Yeah.
We thought, well, let's put some significance to that cap. So we came up with the idea of the number.
To put some pride in the cap.
Put some pride in the cap, yeah, absolutely.
And then you went off and you had some tremendous success working with Sri Lanka, which was really almost their golden generation of players, if you will. How did you instill that sort of pride in the Sri Lankan side?
I didn't have to instill it at all. They're a very proud nation, and they're an absolute privilege to work with. They're such a resilient country, particularly what they've gone through historically, and you have to look at over the last few decades what they've had to go through. And as a cricketing nation, they do fight against the tide. They don't have the finances that a lot of other countries that may have that they're competing, but they've got oodles of talent. They have talented players coming out of every corner of that little island.
And could we see a few of them in the Desert Vipers?
Well, we got Hasaranga there, so
who I love.
Oh, look, he's an absolute
brilliant
magician, isn't he? He's wonderful to watch. So, having him is wonderful, along with all the other players that we have, and we hope that they're well supported.
Well, Tom Moody, it's been an honour having you here in the studios of TSB. We know you're here alongside the Desert Vipers in your role as the Director of Coaching. You've got the trial on. You can't say any names of the emerging talent, but any idea when they'll be released? Close? How?
I know it'll be all done through a draft system in November. Yeah. So we'll be victims of a draft, but we'll be well prepared.
Okay, so I would take that Tom's coming back for some boat parties in November.
Have you got a boat, have you?
Well, we can organise one. If you're going to be on there, I'm sure we'll be able to know a few people. So congratulations on your success, and thank you for joining us here on TS.